My husband spent 20 years restoring this car. When I found the garage empty, my son said, I sold it. My wife wanted to go to Paris, forget it. I was disappointed until the seller called, Mrs. The man forgot something inside. Uh, my name is Vera. I'm 72, and yesterday I opened the garage to brush off the autumn dust and talk to my late husband the way I do when the house is too quiet. For 20 years, he restored this car, bolt by bolt, a blue 67 smelling of oil and orange polish. He ran his fingers along the fender as if he were reading a prayer book. The garage was our chapel. I tugged the chain and saw only a rectangle of pure concrete where the tires had been, a bright, blinding hole. I called my son. He answered on the second ring in the voice he uses when he's already decided I'm wrong. I sold it, yes, sir, he said. Mira wanted to go to Paris? Forget it. We needed the money. For a moment, all I heard was the ticking of the kitchen clock and the quiet sound a house makes when it swallows a scream. You sold Dad's car? Our car, he said. Family treasure. You don't drive? What are you even going to do with it, Mom? It was just standing there. Just standing there. My husband's hand shook for months after chemotherapy. They only quieted when he tightened the nut and looked at me with that crooked grin. He never learned to rest, only to transform grief into movement. And my son called this devotion idle metal. How could my son do this to me? Give it back, I said. My voice surprised me, low, without pleading. It's all done. The papers are signed. The money is already with us. Don't make a big deal out of it. Mira planned a surprise trip. You'll understand when you see the photos. Photos. The word felt like a slap. The photos are in the glove compartment, I said. And a leather notebook. Old junk, Mom. I haven't checked. I hung up before the scream could reach my throat. This wasn't just a car. It was the weight of a marriage, measured in weekends and small victories. I sat on the garage step and looked at the clean concrete, at the small crescent of shadow where the grease pan used to be. A mother shouldn't think what I think. But there's a line you can't cross with people who survive by keeping records, women like me, who've learned to make lists to keep their lives together. He thought I'd cry, forgive him, and bake something to tie us together. He'd forgotten who taught him how to read contracts. The phone rang, a number I didn't recognize. Ms. Gritsenko? The young man answered quietly and cautiously. It's Petro from the car dealership. Your son sold us a blue 67 this morning. I know, I replied. Every word stung. Ma'am, he said, his professional lilt giving way to something almost apologetic. Your husband left something inside. I think it was for you. What is it? I shouldn't have opened this. But your name is on it, and his handwriting, well, you might want to see it. I dressed for the cold, though the day was warm. In the mirror, I saw my mother's face, determined, tired, stubborn in love. On the bus, a girl offered me a seat. I shook my head. My hands rested firmly on the handrail. I remembered my son's wife laughing under the Parisian lights, strangers leaning against a car at some dealership, and my husband saying, if anything happens, you'll know what to do. Did he know? Had he foreseen this very betrayal? At the dealership, the floor gleamed and the air smelled of rubber and expensive coffee. Petro led me to a back office, his eyes careful, kind. On the desk lay a heavy, brown envelope, my name written across it in the blue pen my husband used for everything official. Beside it lay a single key, the spare he kept on a nail above the workbench, the one he would never let anyone else touch. Petro stepped away. Take your time, he said. I can hold the paperwork for a day. I think he wanted you to have this first. My son had laughed about pictures. He hadn't looked. He didn't know what his father hid in plain sight because he never learned to see the difference between value and price. I ran my fingers over the envelope. The paper had softened where his thumb must have pressed. He was leaving me more than memory. I could feel it in the weight. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel, like it, and let us know in the comments what time it is where you are listening to this story. Should I open it there, under fluorescent lights and the eyes of men who move cars like chess pieces? Or carry it home to the kitchen table where he paid bills and fixed clocks, where I could breathe and plan? Revenge is a loud word. Mine would be quiet. He taught me that too. The right tool, the right angle, patience, and then a clean turn that changes everything. I slipped the envelope into my bag. Petro looked relieved, as if he'd delivered a message across a river he didn't dare name. "Thank you," I told him. "I'll be in touch." On the walk home, the city felt newly mapped, corners sharper, distances shorter. I passed the bakery, the pharmacy, the park where boys once chased my son with sticks pretending they were swords. I thought of all the times I cut the crusts off his bread, in the mornings I stood in that garage handing his father wrenches, both of us teaching a boy without words, this is how we take care of what we love. He had chosen Paris over that lesson, so be it. At my table, I laid out the envelope, the key, a notebook of my own. I pressed my palm to the paper and asked the air a foolish question I already knew the answer to. "Are you still helping me?" Then I picked up the letter opener. Whatever my husband left inside would not just return a car, it would return the balance. And if my son wanted pictures, he would have them, of the exact moment price bowed to worth. I did not open the envelope with trembling hands. I opened it the way my husband used to open a hood, with respect, with purpose. Inside lay three things. First, a folded page from his mechanic's log with a note scrawled across the margin. "For Vera, if you're reading this, it means the car has left home without you. Use the blue key, turn once, wait." Second, a small brass key wrapped in electrician's tape. Third, a notarized letter dated 2 months before he died. The notary's stamp bled a little into the paper like an old bruise. My husband's name stood firm above the seal. The letter was addressed to me and to a trust I didn't know existed. He had titled the car in that trust after his diagnosis, naming me trustee. Any sale required my signature. If the car was transferred without it, the sale was incomplete by the trust terms and could be rescinded. I read it twice, feeling the anger in me settle into something cooler. He had known I might need a lever. He had made one. The brass key looked like a safety deposit key, small and stubborn. On the back of the letter, he'd written an address in tidy block letters. The credit union near the market where we used to buy cherries in June. Below it, a simple line, "You will know when to go." I called Petro from my kitchen phone. "I need to see the sale documents," I said, "today." He didn't ask why. "If you can come now, I'll have them ready." I took my husband's letter, the brass key and the spare car key, the one Petro laid beside the envelope. I slipped the notary page into a plastic sleeve the way I used to store school photos. As I locked the door, I felt that quiet click in my chest, the one that means a plan has started to turn. At the dealership, Petro looked both worried and relieved to see me. He laid out a neat stack, bill of sale, a copy of the title my son had provided, a signature line where mine should have been. But the signature was not mine. It was an attempt at my name, shakier than my hand on my worst day, with a loop I have never made in my life. "Did you witness this?" I asked. His jaw hardened just a little. "He brought it already signed," he said. "Said you were ill and trusted him to handle everything." "Ill?" I said. "What kind of illness?" He colored. He used the word failing. Failing. I looked at the forged signature until my eyes smarted. I pulled the notarized trust letter from its sleeve and handed it to Petro. He read silently. When he looked up, there was a new respect in his face, and something like anger on my behalf. "We can unwind this," he said. "If the title's in the trust and you didn't sign, the transfer isn't clean." "I'll talk to my manager," he hesitated. "Your son may not like it." "My son can sit with his discomfort," I said. "I will sit with my husband's honesty." Petro took the papers and disappeared down a hallway. I sat alone at the small glass table meant to make buyers feel transparent. The showroom hummed, glossy men explaining monthly payments, a teenager circling a used hatchback as if measuring a life. My hand drifted to the spare key in my pocket. "Turn once. Wait." The words beat like a pulse. Petro returned with an older man whose face had the blank civility of someone paid to absorb problems. "Mrs. Hritsenko, I'm Danilo, general manager," he said. He hadn't needed to say his role. He wore it like a suit. I've reviewed the trust documents. You have the right to rescind for lack of trustee consent. He arranged his mouth into sympathy. We're prepared to cancel the sale and return the vehicle to its garage. A small breath escaped me. Relief? Yes, but not victory. And the money? I asked. We'll refund to the original payer, he said. That was your son. Of course it was. I tucked the notary page back in the sleeve. Cancel now. The car leaves with me. We'll need a day to ensure all our internal entries are reversed. No, I said. The car leaves with me today. You may keep it here as long as you like on your books, but the car is mine, and it will not spend another night under strangers' lights. He saw something in my face that changed his answer. Petra will bring it around, he said, and his tone shifted from managerial to respectful. I'm sorry for your trouble. Outside, the sun threw hard diamonds on chrome. Petro eased the blue car into the lane, as careful as if he were moving a sleeping child. He opened the door for me the way my husband used to do on Sundays when we drove to the river. There's one more thing, he said. A tiny switch under the dash. I noticed when I checked the electrics. The car won't start unless you flip it up, wait a second, and then turn the key. It's very old school. It's his handwriting, I murmured. Turn once. Wait, my husband had built me a lock no thief would find. My son had sold a thing he didn't understand. I slid into the seat. It still held the faintest trace of my husband's aftershave, cedar and mint, embedded in the leather. I found the hidden switch by touch and flicked it. A soft click. I turned the key once, waited. The silence felt alive. Then I turned again, and the engine woke, a throaty sound that filled the lane and washed some thin pain from me. I drove the car home myself, my spine lined with steel that wasn't in the chassis. When I turned into our street, windows lifted in their frames, faces appearing like curious cats. The blue hood cut a gentle line under the linden trees. I parked in front of our house and let the engine idle while I opened the garage door. I backed the car in, the way he always insisted, so the nose pointed toward the world. My phone vibrated. My son, I let it ring out. He could sit with silence for once. Inside the garage, I tucked the front wheels onto the shallow indentations they had carved over the years. A quiet homecoming. I turned the engine off, flicked the switch down, and sat with my hands on the wheel. The concrete rectangle was no longer empty, but inside me, the space my son had carved out with his decision still gaped, raw. At the kitchen table, I made tea and finally cried. Not for the car, for the boy I raised, for the way his voice had sounded when he was 5 and said, "Mama, look," as if everything he saw was ours together, and for the woman he had married who believed Paris could be bought with a cut-through memory. Perhaps it could, but there would be a cost. I placed the brass key in front of me and the slip of paper with the credit union's address. You will know when to go, I knew. Not now. Not while my hands still shook. Tomorrow. My son arrived at sunset with Mira. They didn't knock. He had his father's jawline and a stranger's eyes. I saw the refund, he said, not bothering with greetings. What did you do? I undid your mistake, I said. Sit. Mira looked past me toward the garage door. It's back, she said, incredulous, as if disobedient furniture had returned. Why? Because your husband sold what he did not own, I said. She laughed, a dry sound. You always take his side. I turned to her, and for once I did not soften my voice. You have never been on my side, Mira. You've been perched on my son's shoulder, whispering about what you deserve. I am not your purse. She kissed her teeth and looked at my son. Tell her about the tickets. He blurted it like a child. We bought them. Non-refundable. Paris. Next week. Then you will lose the money, I said. You funded it with theft. It's not theft if it's our family asset, he snapped. Dad is gone. You don't even drive? I lifted my hand, and he fell silent. It was a reflex from childhood, a muscle memory of the respect I had taught him. Don't say Dad is gone as if he were a cupboard you emptied, I said. He is in that garage more surely than you have been in this house for years. You chose a trip over truth, return the funds to your account, and I will not take the next step. His eyes narrowed. What step? Don't test what you already know about me, I said softly. I keep records. Mira leaned forward. You can't stop us from traveling. You can't cancel our cards. You can't. I won't need to, I said. You'll run out of air in a different room. They left angry. Anger is easy. It burns. It thinks it is power, but power sits quietly and waits for the right turn. In the morning, I went to the credit union. The teller recognized me from years of deposits and Christmas cards. The box was small, like something you'd give a new bride, full of pearls. I signed, turned the key, and lifted the lid. Inside lay a leather-bound notebook, a flash drive, and a tiny plastic bag, and a folded note. The day you need this, you'll already know what to do, but here's the map, in case anger makes you forget. I took them home. The flash drive contained scans, titles, insurance policies, a simple trust document with my name as trustee and 2 successor trustees, our neighbor Olha, who had known us for 30 years, and our granddaughter Sophia to step up when she turned 21. My husband had left a letter to both of them to honor the trust's purpose, preserve what we built, protect Vera if grief makes her too generous. I smiled at the last line. He knew me too well. The leather notebook was something else entirely. It held a record of every purchase for the car across 2 decades. Bolts, panels, paint, service manuals, tiny illustrations of how he'd routed wires for the hidden kill switch, a list of names he'd thanked. Vera, for the sandwiches and the patience, Petro, for the honest eyes, Olha, for the advice on paperwork, and Mikola, for reminding me that boys aren't men until they choose to be. On the last page, he had copied a paragraph from a law book in his own words. A sale is not a sale if the seller lacks both title and consent. Beneath it, a postscript. If he tries something, don't shout. Show I made copies of the trust and the title scans and placed the originals back in the safe. I wrote a list on a yellow pad. It had only 3 lines. Dealer, rescinded, done. Credit union, secure, done. Next, the show. My husband loved the city summer car show. He entered our blue one only once, 3 years before he died, and refused the ribbon, saying, "It's for us, not them." But the show returned every June to the square with families, music, and cameras. It was a week away. My son's flight to Paris was in 5 days. A plan took shape like a sheet on a bed, simple, inevitable. I called the show coordinator, an old friend of my husband's from the parts market. I want a display spot next to the stage, Owen, I said, and I want to speak for 2 minutes. For you, Vera, he said, as long as you like. 2 minutes, I repeated, no more. For the next days, I prepared. I polished the car until it gleamed. I placed my husband's logbook on a stand beside it and enlarged 4 photos. The rusted frame he started with, the night he finished the paint, his hand resting on the hood with the sun in his hair, and the 2 of us holding coffee cups in the garage, smiling the kind of tired smile that had more in it than youth could understand. I arranged them on a board. I did not hide the trust page. I placed it under glass in the corner like a caption, the outline of choices, the proof of care. The night before the show, I called my son. Come tomorrow, I said. Bring Mira. He sighed. We're packing. You can spare 1 hour for your father, I said. After that, you can run anywhere you like. He came. They both did, dressed like they were already in an airport lounge. The square was buzzing with music and grilled meat and boys pointing at engines. The blue car sat by the stage. People hovered, murmuring. It wasn't the nicest car there. That wasn't the point. It was the story that drew them. I didn't agree to some public scolding, my son said, scanning the crowd. I didn't answer. When the coordinator handed me the microphone, I felt my husband's hand at my back the way he used to press me forward when I was afraid to speak in church. I looked at my son, not at the crowd. This car took 20 years to build, I said, my voice carrying because I wanted it to. It took patience and money we didn't always have, and evenings when we chose a gasket over a movie. We built it while our son grew from a boy who liked to hand us bolts to a man who forgot what bolts teach. A ripple through the crowd, my son's chin lifted, defiant. Last week, my son sold this car without my consent, I said. He forged my name on a document he never had the right to sign. There were little gasps then. I let them settle. He did it for a trip? People make mistakes when they think the world owes them holidays for being alive. Mira took my son's arm. "We're leaving," she hissed. I held up the trust document under glass. What he did not know is that his father and I learned from bitter experience to prepare for the day you need proof more than rage. We titled the car in a trust that requires my signature to sell. I did not sign. The sale was rescinded, the car is home, the money will be returned. I placed the microphone down on the hood and looked at my son. "You have today to bring me the bank's notice of refund. If you do, we will speak privately about what it means to repair trust. If you do not, I file a complaint tomorrow for forgery and fraud. I will not enjoy doing so, but I will do it." Silence is not empty. It is full of eyes. My son blushed the color of an open wound. The crowd began to murmur again, but now it sounded different. Not gossip, but something like agreement that a line had been drawn exactly where it belonged. He turned on his heel and disappeared into the crowd with Mira. I let myself breathe. People approached me quietly after to squeeze my hand, to say variations on one sentence. "You did the right thing." I nodded and thanked them and slipped away to sit in the car. I rested my forehead on the wheel. An hour later, my phone buzzed. A screenshot from my son. A refund confirmation. No text. Just the picture. It wasn't repentance. It was self-preservation. But it was something. I walked to the fountain and dialed my granddaughter, Sophia. Her voice always lifts my heart the way a song does when it finds the right note. "Babusia?" she said. "How did it go?" "It went," I said. "We will talk." She hesitated. "Mom's angry?" "Mira is angry. Your father is quiet. That's an improvement." Sophia exhaled, a sound of relief and sorrow braided together. "I'm not going with them, you know," she said. "Paris. I told them I have exams." I smiled. "You are your own compass," I said. "I'm proud of you." We talked about small things then, the weather, her studies, a plant she was trying to keep alive on her windowsill. When we said goodbye, the square was starting to empty, the shadows of cars, long and blue. That night, the house felt less empty. I slept deeply. In the morning, I made coffee and set the leather notebook on the table. On a new page, I wrote today's date and this line: "Showed, did not shout." At noon, my doorbell rang. It was Mira alone, carrying a paper bag as if she were making an offering. "He's at the bank," she said without preamble. "He said to give you this." Inside the bag was a small envelope with cash and the 2 plane tickets to Paris, printed on heavy paper. "We can get a credit with the airline," she said, "but he wanted you to have these." "Why?" I asked, not trusting that the gesture was clean. She glanced at the living room, at the photos on the piano, at the corner where the blue car's ribbons lived in a glass jar. "Because you won, Vera," she said simply, and for the first time there was no spite in her voice, just fatigue and something like bewilderment at finding a boundary where she had expected open fields. "I did not win," I said. "I protected what was not his to sell." She looked at me for a long moment. "What are you going to do with the tickets?" "I haven't decided." I kept my eyes on her as I spoke. "But I have an idea." She waited, as if expecting me to fill the silence the way she always did. When I didn't, she nodded and left. I took the tickets to the kitchen table and laid them flat. Paris was a word with too many postcards attached to it. I thought of 20 years of saving, of the way we used to put coins into a jar, labeled small dreams. We'd spent them on the car, on a trip to the sea, on fixing the roof, on a weekend in a small mountain town with the best dumplings we'd ever eaten. We never made it to Paris together. The idea stuck in my throat like a dry crumb. My husband would have laughed and said, "We had what we needed. The rest is decoration." He was right, but sometimes decoration is a language. I called Sophia again. Pack a small bag, I said. 2 tickets need bodies. She made a sound like a squeak and then swallowed it. When? Tomorrow, I said. The flights are for your parents' dates. We will use them and we will send a picture, one that says, "We will not be exiled from joy." She hesitated, cautious. Will Dad be angry? Probably, I said, but perhaps he will learn the difference between a trip earned and a trip stolen. We went to Paris. I will not pretend I did not feel a petty spark when I took a picture on the Pont Neuf with Sophia's head on my shoulder and the blue sky acting like a cliché. But that spark did not become the whole fire. We ate bread that tasted like air had been taught to sing. We stood in front of paintings and pretended we could tell why they were special. In a small jewelry shop, I bought a silver key charm and slid it on my necklace next to my wedding ring. The shopkeeper smiled at the way I held it. He had seen grief before and knew the gestures by which women try to make it gentle. On the 3rd day, I received a message from my son. It was not an apology. It was a sentence without decoration. Come home, we need to talk. I wrote back, we will. Then I turned off my phone and had another hour by the river with my granddaughter, who understood that there are times to answer and times to let the world wait. When we returned, my son was in my kitchen, sitting at the table like a boy called in from play to face the consequence he'd been warned about. He looked smaller. Anger shrinks people. Consequences have a way of putting them back in their true size. I refunded the money, he said. I know. Thank you, He stopped. The words seemed heavy even before they got to his tongue. I don't know why I did it. That is not true, I said. You did it because you wanted to please your wife and because you did not want to ask me for what you wanted. You did it because you think family is a cash machine that dispenses forgiveness. I also thought he ran a hand through his hair, a gesture from childhood that used to make me soften. I held myself still. I thought Dad would want me to have experiences. Your father wanted you to have integrity, I said. Experiences without it are noise. We sat in silence, but it did not feel empty. It felt like a room airing out. What happens now? He asked finally. I took a sheet of paper from my notebook, 2 columns. The first, what I will do, The second, what you will do. What I will do, I said, sliding the paper to him, is change the successor trustee on the car's trust to Sophia, effective now, instead of at 21. I will add a provision that the car cannot be sold within my lifetime and that any sale after must be voted by 2 trustees. I will also move the house into a similar trust with clear instructions. He swallowed. You don't trust me? I trust you to be the man you showed me this month, I said. I hope you will become the man you say you wish to be. Trust is not a crown, it's a coat you earn by walking in the rain without shrugging. He looked at the second column. What I will do. You will write me a letter, I said. Not today. Not with excuses. You will tell me what your plan is to rebuild. You will set a date, 6 months from now, to show me, by action, not words, how you are doing it. In the meantime, you will agree that any financial decision involving family property is discussed and documented. You will also pay Petro's dealership the inspection fee they waived when they decided to help us undo your mistake. He blinked. Why would I pay the dealership? Because someone did right by us, I said. We pay back what we owe even when no one would chase us for it. He nodded, grudging but not resistant. It was a start. For once, he did not look at his phone when it buzzed. He left it face down. That felt like a miracle I had not prayed for. After he left, I went to the garage and stood with the blue car. I pressed my fingers to the hood the way my husband used to. I did what you taught me, I told the air. I didn't shout. I showed. The house settled around me in its usual old bones music, and I felt the smallest release, like something long clenched opening. A week later, Mira came by. She stood on the sidewalk, unsure whether to enter the yard. I went out to meet her, keeping the gate between us, not as a punishment, just as a reminder of the border that now existed between our lives. I wanted to say, she stopped, visibly allergic to the word, "Not sorry?" I don't think I am, but I wanted to say I understand now that the car wasn't just a car. You have a way of making simple things heavy with meaning. I learned to do that to survive, I said. When the world tried to tell me we had less than we did, I made a weight of small loyalties. They hold, she nodded, looking down. We're taking a break, she said. Me and him. He's thinking. It might be good for him. It might be good for both of them, I thought, but did not say. Some lessons require silence and spaces where no one is waiting to cushion the fall. That evening, I invited Pietro and his girlfriend for tea. I handed him an envelope with the dealership fee and a note from my son thanking them. Petro's eyes warmed. It was the right thing, he said. Too many people think paper can erase truth. It can hide it for a while, I said, but then means show. He laughed softly. Keep that switch hidden, he said, nodding toward the garage. The world is full of hasty hands. Mine are not hasty anymore, Bass, I said. They are patient. Later, when the house was quiet, I added another line to the leather notebook. Returned the car without a fight, taught the boy that love has locks too, and keys. I feel something steady. My revenge was never about fire, it was about a key turning. And you will see what compassion does when it stops being a doormat and becomes a door with a lock that fits only honest hands. I did not try to accelerate healing. Some engines stall when you push too hard. I made myself a new routine. Each morning, I opened the garage door and let the light fall across the blue paint. I ran the car once a week, long enough to warm the engine, long enough to remind myself that maintenance is love in motion. I kept the brass key around my neck, warm against the skin that had weathered 72 winters and still felt the sun deeply. A month later, the second hook of this story arrived by mail, disguised as a plain envelope from the insurance company. Inside was a notice that the homeowner's policy had flagged suspicious inquiries. Someone had requested a copy of the deed and asked about coverage limits for contents, including vehicles. The inquiry had my son's email on it. I sat very still. Then I made tea. The old reflex to pick up the phone and ignite a fight tugged at me, but I held myself in the chair until the impulse passed. I scanned the notice, printed a copy, and laid it next to the trust documents. I called the insurance agent who had known my husband by his first name. Please mark my file, I said. No releases without my written consent. Done, she said. Everything okay? It will be, I said. But someone's still learning. I waited until the evening to call my son. I received a notice, I said without greeting. You asked for my deed and my policy. Why? He stuttered. Lies need rehearsal, truths do not. I just wanted to understand the house stuff for planning. Your planning does not include my property, I said. Let me save you time. I am moving the house into a trust like the car. The trustees will be me and Olha now. And Sophia, when she turns 21, any change in the future will be voted. There will be no surprises. You think I'm trying to... He couldn't say the word. Steal. He used to refuse to say words like poop when he was little too, as if avoiding the term might avoid the act. I think you are testing the fence, I said. It held. Don't walk into it again. He exhaled, a hard sound. I wasn't going to do anything without talking to you, he said. You did it with the car, I said. That is now part of your history with me. You must behave for long enough to write over it. The next week, I went to the notary with Olha and signed the trust papers for the house. Olha squeezed my hand, her palm warm and soft. He is not a monster, she said quietly. He is a boy who likes shortcuts too much because life gave him a mother who made everything smooth. I know, I said. I made the road level so he could run. I forgot to teach him the love of walking. At home, I filed the new documents in the safe with the others. I sat in the garage with the car and spoke to the air again, not asking for advice, but offering a report the way my husband used to after a long day. We built a structure, I said. It holds when pushed. 3 months after Paris, Sophia showed up at my door with a pie she had burned slightly. It smelled like cinnamon trying to do the right thing. I have a question, she said. Do you think Dad can change? Yes, I said. But not because I think people flip like coins, because I think time rubs us until our edges match the shape of the truth we've been avoiding. She chewed her lip. He asked me to talk to you, she said. He wrote the letter you asked for. She handed me a lined notebook page in his handwriting. I read it while she watched my face as if she could read the letter twice, once with her eyes, once with mine. He had written about shame. It wasn't purple, it wasn't decorated. He said he had felt it in his body like a bad flu, hot 1 minute, cold the next. He wrote about how easy it was to be a child again when he was in our house, to reach for things without earning them. He wrote that he was taking a second job, not a big one, but work with his hands in a friend's repair shop on weekends for 6 months. I want to know what it feels like to earn the cost of a plane ticket with Bolt, he wrote. I don't expect it to fix your trust. I expect it to fix me a little. I folded the paper and gave it back to Sophia. Tell him to come by Sunday, I said. Bring his hands. He arrived in old jeans that did not look staged. We didn't speak much. I led him to the garage. For 2 hours, we changed the oil, checked connections, tightened things that didn't strictly need tightening. He listened when I pointed. When I told him to hand me the 3/8, he handed it without asking which socket. He remembered something his father had taught him about bearings. He smiled once, the smile from age 10. I pretended I didn't notice. We went inside and ate soup at the kitchen table. He set his spoon down and looked at me as if there were a window opening in his face. Thank you, he said. For soup? I asked, teasing gently, but not letting it become a joke. For not making me grovel, he said. For not making this a story about how bad I am, forever. It's not a story about that, I said. It's a story about a woman who refused to be erased and a man who learned something about weight. I didn't forgive him that day as a ceremony. There was no moment when I declared it. Forgiveness is not a lever. It is the slow erosion of stubbornness by better habits. We developed those habits. He came by on Sundays. Sometimes we worked on the car. Sometimes we made lists for the house, weather stripping, a wobbly step, the window that stuck in the bedroom. Sometimes we just sat and talked about the garden that had gone wild on us and decided to let it have part of the yard rather than fight it, and it felt like surrendering to a kinder rule. I must tell you straight, my reckoning was not a shout in a courtroom. It was a series of small signatures and a refusal to give in to fear. Justice did not roar. It clicked, clean and final, like a key finally fitting, and what comes next will show you how patience can be sharper than any blade. The final twist came quietly, the way all true endings do, disguised as normal life. It was winter. Snow lay on the driveway like a sheet pulled up over a sleeping giant. I received a letter from a bank I did not use, addressed to my husband's estate. Inside was a statement for a loan I had never heard of, taken 3 years earlier with my husband as co-signer. The borrower? My son. My chest went cold. The loan had been modest, enough to buy something shiny, not enough to ruin a life. The balance had been paid off 2 months after my husband died. On the back in the notes was a line. Payment processed via cashier's check, drawn on account ending 5219. That was not an account I knew. The letter had been forwarded through an address change sweep. Someone was tidying records. I sat with the letter until the heat came back to my fingers. This was not new betrayal. It was old, hidden. I did not know whether my husband had known, whether he had quietly helped our son when he could not face telling me. The dates overlapped with a rough patch when our son's business sagged, and pride kept him from asking for help. Maybe he asked his father because he knew I would say yes with conditions. Fathers often get to be the generous ones. Mothers carry the budgets and the shame. I did not know what to feel. Grief for the secret, anger at my son for the old habit, Tenderness for my husband who might have broken his own rules to cushion a blow I didn't see? In the end, I decided to do what I had done all year. I put the letter in a sleeve and wrote 3 lines on a yellow pad. Ask, listen, decide. On Sunday, my son came to change a filter. After we washed our hands, I handed him the letter. He read it and closed his eyes. When he opened them, I saw not the boy or the defiant man, but something steadier, someone who did not look away. I was drowning, he said. I asked, Dad. He made me promise to pay it back by the time. He couldn't say the rest. I did. I paid it before. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd be hurt. He kept it from you. I am hurt, I said, but not because of the money. Because I was denied the chance to be part of the repair? He nodded. I know. I'm sorry. We stood at the sink, 2 people who had spent decades misunderstanding what help looked like. Then I did something that surprised us both. I took a small wooden box from the cabinet and set it between us. Inside were 3 objects, my brass key, the spare car key, and a simple metal key to the house. There will come a day when these will be yours to manage, I said. Today is not that day, but you can hold them for a minute. He lifted them one by one, feeling their weight. He placed them back with a care that felt new and very old. Spring came. The linden trees bent their heads toward the blue car like a blessing. Sophia got a summer internship at the museum, and on her first day, I drove her in the blue car without telling anyone, because sometimes a secret is a gift, not a wound. She grinned the whole way and looked exactly like her father at 19 when he believed the world would greet him like a friend. I thought, let him earn that friend now. Let him keep it. On the anniversary of my husband's death, we held a small gathering on the driveway. Olha brought dill pickles and memories. Petro came with flowers. My son came early to help set up the chairs and stood quietly by the garage door while people told their favorite stories about my husband that always ended in laughter, even when they were about something that had once hurt. When the last guest left, my son hugged me. It was not the habitual, perfunctory hug of a rushed man. It was something else. Thank you for not selling the car, he said into my hair. Thank you for not selling me. I held him longer than either of us expected. Then I stepped back and smiled. Get the 3/8, I said. There's always work to do. We did it. We kept doing it. That is the end of one story and the start of the only one that matters. People learn or they don't. But we do not lose ourselves in their lessons. I can tell you the temptation to scorch the earth was real, but I chose to plant a hedge. And as you read on, you'll see how boundaries can be a mercy that teach better than any speech, and how my next move closes the circle without closing the door. 1 year later, the car show returned. I parked the blue car in the same place by the stage. This time, my son stood beside me. He had grease under his fingernails that would not scrub out and a small nicks on his knuckles. They were good signs, like the way people with gardens have dirt in the creases of their palms. We printed new photos, the car under snow, Sophia grinning on the passenger side, my son changing the oil while I handed him the filter with the same hand he'd used to try to take from me. I added a new piece under glass, a short paragraph typed this time that said simply, "A thing is worth what it costs to keep it honest." People came by and asked about the engine, about the paint, about the story. I told it with fewer sharp edges because time had sanded them. Somewhere in the crowd, Mira watched. She waved once, a quiet hello, and I returned it. We were not friends. We were not enemies. We were 2 women who had stood on different sides of a door and learned its weight. That evening, my son and I moved the car back into the garage and stood in its fading warm smell. I asked someone to look at my books, he said suddenly. A proper accountant? I didn't want to, but I did. We found a leak. I'm fixing it good, I said. That's more interesting than a trip. I'll take one someday anyway, he said, smiling. I'll pay for it myself and send you a picture from some ugly tourist spot. You'll tell me it's ridiculous and ask if I saw the local hardware store. I will, I said. And you'll send me a picture of a wrench and we'll both pretend it's the Eiffel Tower. We laughed. It felt like a release, like the way an engine did when it finally accepted the new oil and purred a little lower. I went inside and wrote one last line in the leather notebook on the page where my husband had left me the first instruction: turn once. Wait. I added, then turn again, but only when the quiet tells you it is time. I will leave you with this. My justice was not triumphant like a parade. It was triumphant like a lock that clicks and stays clicked, like a life that moves forward without apology. And if you were listening closely, you heard it every time something turned exactly as designed. Do you think I did the right thing? Let me know in the comments. If you liked my story, subscribe to the channel and like it. Thank you for listening to this story.
My grandma told me this story. I have many more stories. Subscribe so you don't miss the most interesting things.